for syncing the audio.
Hello everyone, I am Subhav Ramnani, your host for the M.A.M. show, a podcast series where we dissect the life journeys of people in the medical field and try to learn and gain from their knowledge and experience. So today we have Dr. Suchita, a post-intern NEET PG aspirant. She is known by the name Medkit Diaries, and today she will clear all our doubts about preparing for NEET PG after your MBBS internship. So let's go. So, Suchita, would you like to introduce yourself to our listeners?
Alright, so hey guys, my name is Suchita. I run a channel on YouTube called Medkit Diaries and an Instagram page and Facebook page. So yeah, I'm currently a post-intern who's preparing for NEET PG, and that's pretty much all I've been doing this year. Yeah, that's it.
So, how's your quarantine going? Staying at home? What is it like?
You know what's really funny is that I don't think my life would have been much different with or without the quarantine and lockdown, because I was supposed to sit home and study this whole year anyway. I think it's just become a little easier to do that because nobody's moving and I don't feel left out.
So everyone's like behaving like you, staying home and doing their work.
Basically, I think it's interesting to see how so many people have difficulties in doing their job and how comparatively easy it's been for me because I haven't, had to change my lifestyle at all. So in that sense, quarantine's been going pretty well, which is such a bad thing to say, but it's been going fine for me.
Well, that's good to hear. So, since you're a post-intern, so we'll be talking about all the tips and strategies and everything, and hopefully the students can, learn something from it and learn something from your own experience. So, let me get straight to it. One of the most asked questions, maybe in your DMs and I don't know, asked questions to me is like we have this TND from our institute, like we have from Prep Ladder, from Marrow, plethora of other apps or even offline institutes. But we also have our own revision schedule because everyone's not studying the same way with the not with the same organization in their mind. So how can we tackle this? How can we follow their TND and give the tests according to that and also have our own revision schedule? So what's your take on it and how can we surpass this barrier?
This is actually a really big topic that I've been trying to deal with myself because this is the time, right? September, August, we start revising, or we're supposed to start revising. Yeah. So I think that I've kept it really simple for myself. I've decided that I'm not going to see DAMS TND or Prep Ladder TND and rapid revision all as separate things. I'm going to just incorporate everything because these are meant to make our lives easier, not harder. So if I have my own schedule, which I didn't because I knew I had these resources, so I didn't plan my own revision schedule. I just decided to follow rapid revision and then include one day in the middle for TNDs. So I kept it simple for myself. I decided not to try to do everything. I think it's always better to stick to a few simple things and then revise them again rather than having, 5 different revision methods and not being able to complete one of them. So yeah, that's basically what I'm doing.
Okay, so talking about revision, you said you're focusing on one thing and not following 5 different methods. So how do you exactly do that? How do you plan an effective revision schedule for yourself? I know it's personalized, but still, how can you do that and how will it help you?
It's interesting that for me revision was the worst thing. Like during school and during college, I hated revising. I'd always be like, no, I want to learn a new topic, learn something I haven't studied before. I don't like revising. So revision, I think I only started taking seriously in like third year or final year of MBBS. And then I realized how easier it makes my life. And I decided what I do now is basically that I take the first 2 hours of the day, and I set that aside from any of the other, like, suppose I'm doing rapid revision, or suppose today I've decided a bulk of my day is going to do, I'm going to be taking a grant test. I take 2 hours in the morning, and in that 2 hours, I do the DAMS daily challenge, which is basically just 5 questions. Then I revise GT questions from the previous grant test that I'd done. And then I do the treasures from Prep Ladder. And if I have time, usually I have like maybe half an hour, because I try to speed through these things. So I have about half an hour in which I just skim through any of the topics that I felt that I'd completed the previous day. And the previous day, I don't care about like things that I haven't done or I haven't revised before. I just focus on what I did yesterday and just skim over it. And I try to finish it in 2 hours. I don't want to spend more time for that. And the biggest thing for revision, I think, is doing question banks. So basically, I try to do my question banks a little bit after I finish the videos, so I use that as a revision instead of it just being the first time around with the videos. So I get the question bank done, I also get a revision done, and I think it'll work out.
So basically, you're just revising yesterday's material, and for the things you studied in the past month or the past year, you're basically revising with the help of question banks.
Yeah, basically. And grant tests are a way to revise as well, right? So I see all of this as revision. I don't see that as a separate thing. Doing grant tests is supposed to, help us revise topics and supposed to see, how we're improving throughout the year. So I don't see it as separate.
Okay, so talking about grant tests, let's say. So people are, first of all, I have seen very scared of giving these grant tests. They're like, oh, I have like 40% like done with my syllabus, and grant test has everything. How will I tackle this? I'm obviously gonna get a bad score. So why give it anyway? I'll just focus and complete my syllabus instead. So, and another question they have is, okay, I have done the syllabus, like majority of it. I am giving the grant test. I was performing good, but now it has come to a plateau, or now my scores are decreasing. What should I do? I'm losing myself. So these are 2 questions people ask. So what's your take on this?
So many people post the same message every day on like the Prep Ladder groups on Facebook and the DAMS groups on Facebook. And I knew that this was going to happen. This is something I'd prepared myself for. So I started taking grant tests like in February. I didn't wait. Like I started my preparation for NEET PG in January, February. And I started taking GTs from then, like, when I hadn't completed even like one subject or half a subject. I was like, okay, matlab, I've done MBBS, so let's just see how many questions I can answer. Obviously, I don't remember anything from like even final year, after internship, like you're so into clinical work, you don't really remember theories. But I was like, what, I'm just going to try. And I think allowing myself the chance of failure, allowing myself to at least try, removed a lot of fear, because I realized it's just me. Like, it's me taking a test. I don't have to show these to anyone. I don't need to prove anything with these scores. Just keep taking it. So that's how I approached it. I was like, this is just for me. I don't have to worry about, what X person is doing in their houses and what they're scoring. So that that made it easier for me to get over the fear of starting grant tests. Even, I know a lot of people, a lot of my friends just don't take grant tests. Maybe they've taken like a couple so far. And because of this fear, they have this fear that I'm not going to do well. Why should I even bother? But try, I think I've cleared a lot of topics in my head just by taking grant tests. Because now I know what type of questions are asked from those topics.
Yeah.
Yeah, and about the plateauing of scores,
Yeah.
I have seen that in myself over the past last 2 or 3 grant tests I've taken. Like, I haven't improved. I've been kind of steady, like, within like 10 marks up and down. And I realized that I need to change the way I approach grant tests and the way I need to revise going forward. So I again had this mentality shift where I was like, no, this isn't going to bring me down. I have another 4 months. I don't need to, take this as the final score that I'm going to achieve in the NEET PG. And for that, I've decided to take the revision of grant tests a little bit more seriously. I've also started noticing problems while I take the test. Like, do I hurry and don't read through all of the options properly, or I don't understand the options properly, so I make a stupid mistake? So I'm trying to eliminate all of these small things by actually analyzing myself. And I think it's worth it. You might think like, I don't have time to do this. I don't have time. I'd rather, read my notes once more than revise my grant test. But I think it's really, really important that, anybody who's plateauing, analyzes what you're doing wrong. Why are you getting these scores? Is it because you actually don't know the information? Do you actually need to go revise your notes? Or is it because you're approaching the questions wrong? So that's my advice.
Okay, so another thing is, for example, I'm taking a grant test, and for example, I'm in my score range. I'm happy with my scores. And then it is plateauing. What should I do? Should I stop taking grant tests or continue taking it?
No, I don't think I think that if we stop taking grant tests, stop preparing, and we'll go down. Like, we won't stay on that plateau. Like, there you must have seen this even in your own college. There are kids who start off really strong in the beginning of the year, and then something happens a few months before the exam where they think they've got it, but when the exams come around, they've lost a lot of, they're down the peak now. They're not at the peak anymore. So I think it's really a matter of not being complacent. Don't be complacent. Just keep trying to stay at that level,
So you just have to give grant tests till your exam. That's the final verdict here.
That's basically it. Practicing, right?
Okay.
We've got to keep practicing.
Okay, and one more thing about these grant tests is like, how can I know if these are similar to the real thing? Like, there are so many grant tests available. You can, again, other institutions, many online apps. Everyone has their own. So how can I know which ones to give and how frequently to give them?
I think at this point, now that we're getting into September, for the frequency bit, a lot of people just say like, give them every 2 weeks or give them every week or every 10 days. I have decided to take them every week as long as something doesn't happen, during that day for myself, because I think I need to work on honing my exam taking skills. So that's what I've decided for myself in terms of frequency. And about platforms, I think it's just give as many questions as you can, right? Maximizing your practice. The exam questions, like previous year exam questions, are going to be the same on any platform because those questions actually were the exam questions, right? So taking those tests doesn't matter what platform you take them on. Apart from that, choosing which platform to take, I think if you're already choosing an online platform for your primary video lectures and notes, you can start with the grant tests of that platform, and if you're done with them,
and then move on to others.
Move on, So
okay, so that's all about grant tests. I think we've covered all questions people usually have about grant tests. So now that I know, you have taken a drop year after your internship now. And as you've told me before, you had taken a drop year after your high school for MBBS. So what's the difference between that drop year after high school and this drop year after your internship, after you're a doctor? So it's two separate exams. That was NEET UG and other, college exams, and this is NEET PG aims and other exams.
Yeah.
So what has been the difference?
I think I'll need to start with explaining why I took a drop year in NEET UG. I had graduated
Sure.
from New York. I had graduated from American system of education. So I hadn't studied physics and chemistry according to the Indian CBSE syllabus. I hadn't studied organic
Oh.
chemistry at all. So,
That would
and
have been tough.
okay, so it's funny because I found out that I had to take the NEET because previously there was a quota for MEA students. Like there were 5 seats, all India 5 seats for MBBS. And then that year they were like, no, you have to take the NEET. And this is 2013. So NEET was
Okay.
introduced in 2013 and then 15. So in 2013, I took the NEET, and this is with about like 6-7 months of preparation, which I didn't do well. Like I completely screwed that up. And then I took a drop year. So first I had to study for the first time, what people had been studying for 2 years. And
Yeah.
second, like I really didn't feel like I was going to do it. Like I didn't have that confidence in myself. I really didn't know how to study, how to revise, how to practice at all. This time around, I feel like I'm on equal footing. So there's a change in mentality, a huge change in mentality. All of us have done MBBS. All of us have the opportunity. We've all had the opportunity to study from the same books, at least.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm on equal footing this time. And after doing 5 years of MBBS, 1 year of internship, and like really understanding what it takes to work hard and get things done,
Yeah.
I think I'm, a lot healthier mentally. I feel a lot happier studying. I don't become sad as easily. Like that drop year during UG was, very, very depressing for me.
Yeah, I
So
can imagine. I can imagine.
So it's I'm just happier this time because I decided to be happy. I was like, I'm not going to let myself be bogged down. I'm doing so much better than I was, and I got into MBBS. Like I got into a private college, but I got into MBBS with the grappling and this crying and
Yeah.
all of that. I still managed to get into MBBS. Now that I've done with it, I can move up, I can go further, I can improve, the type of institute that I go to for residency. So I
Yeah.
think that's like the biggest change for me.
Okay. So now that you feel you have a level field with the others, right?
Yes. Or I've decided to think that, like I've decided that I do have, like I'm not below others. Because some people might
But
say, oh,
that-
you went to like a private college, maybe like you didn't, study as well. But the truth is that kids in any college may or may not study, right? So
Yeah, that's true. That depends on the student, not the college, I guess.
exactly.
So there's this one interesting thing you told me. You came from the American system and you had to compete with everyone who had been studying with the Indian system. So for me personally, being in the Indian system, this was so difficult. Like I liked physics, but I was never good at it. I hated chemistry. I can just say that I loved biology and I was good at it. So competing against people who have studied all this and you being, fairly new to this, how did you tackle this? Because I think those tips will still apply now. Like how did you overcome this big barrier in your preparation?
I basically had this mentality. My dad's in the foreign service, so I've moved around a lot. I've changed schools and systems throughout my whole life. And I think they had this mentality where there were like no excuses. Like you're not, a student who, needs to have extra help or something like that. You're smart enough, you can do it. Was this kind of like, which is good and
Yeah.
bad. But because I had no excuses, I was like, okay, I have 1 year. I can study this and learn this in a year, But that also meant that I didn't prepare for the exam specifically. I was studying more like theory. So maybe I might have done decently on the board exams, but I didn't do, exceptional in the NEET UG. But I basically, again, it was that mentality where I was like, okay, you know what, I have to do it. I might as well try, pay attention, It wasn't anything, super specific or nuanced. I was like, okay, let me just try doing this, take it easy. And that, at least for me, worked out in my favor. I was able to get into a couple of decent colleges. I got into good colleges for dentistry, but I knew that I don't want to do dentistry. So I decided to go to a private college for MBBS because that's the course that I wanted to do. I wanted to study MBBS and that syllabus. So
Yeah.
I decided to do that eventually after everything was done.
Okay, so I think that's a good mentality to have, to start and to take it easy no matter the circumstances. I think
Yeah,
I can learn from this. So
I think in quarantine, a lot of people need to take it easy, right?
yeah, definitely. A lot of people are, getting depressed and sad that I can't go out, I can't meet my friends, I need that break. So it's been tough for everyone, but I think making with this mentality, it will be a lot easier, I think. So that's a great mentality you had, and wow, that's amazing. So another thing is, so another thing we have is you did as you said, your drop year after internship was way different. So, but many people ask, what should I do and how should I prepare for my NEET PG exam in my internship, or should I even do that, or should I just do it afterwards? So, what's your take on this?
So for me, I think I, very clearly early on decided that I'm not going to prepare during internship. I didn't think that I had enough skills during my postings and things. We learn to take history basically all throughout MBBS, and we get pretty good at taking history, but not much else. And I really wanted to develop some clinical skills, how to approach patients in the emergency. So I spent quite some time in the emergency department of our hospital learning how to take history in that circumstance, suturing. We used to get a lot of road traffic accidents in my hospital because we were on a highway. So, learning all of those skills, seeing how intubations are done, even though I hadn't done one myself, a lot of just general skills, applying, sutures. Somebody comes in with a broken arm, how that's supposed to be managed. And I knew that if I decided to study and prepare for NEET PG, I would be distracted. I would just feel like either I should be studying, and when I'm studying, I should be learning, clinical skills. And while I'm at the hospital, I think I want to go back to my room and study for the PG. And at that time, I wasn't somebody, maybe it's changed now, but at that time, I knew myself that I wouldn't be able to handle both. Some people can. I just knew that I couldn't at that time. I would be distracted. So that's something I did for myself. That's not to say people don't do well in internship or learn skills, and those people still go ahead and get into NEET PG. A lot of my batchmates are have already started the residency now, and I don't think that they missed out on much. Maybe they didn't have that much practice, because I spent a lot of time in the hospital, a lot of time just sitting around in the hospital. As interns, a lot of our job is just to sit around, and in case someone needs us, we're there. So I spent a lot of time like that, and during that time, I decided to do other things. I started reading a lot that I wasn't able to do in MBBS. I went on foreign trips, so I went to Hong Kong and I went to Milan. So, I did other things that I couldn't have done during MBBS, during my internship. So it's not like I just stayed in the hospital. Like, I decided to explore other avenues for myself. And I think that if you are a person who, thinks that, no, I should complete my residency by a certain age so that I can get married, I can get settled, I have a stable income, go ahead. Like, you don't need to take a drop year. You can study hard during internship and still get through. A lot of people do. You can sit in the OPDs and do question banks and listen to lectures. A lot of kids do it. A lot of my batchmates did it. And if you think that, I want to experience things that I didn't do during MBBS because I didn't get vacations. Like, I never got vacations in MBBS. We just never had holidays. We had like 1 day for Diwali and like 1 day for Christmas. We never had like a week or 2 weeks off. So I decided to take those breaks during internship. And that's not to say one is better than the other. I think it just depends on what you want to do. A lot of people who don't know what they want to do, I think maybe it's better if you know that you want to do residency, it's better to just study and go for that. But if you do know that you want to do something different, I think internship is a good time to explore.
Okay, so now, for example, I am following exactly what you're telling me. I'm focused. I am focused in my internship. I don't want to focus now on NEET PG, as Suchita is saying, and I'm very determined to do that. So now I have completed my internship. Now I have two more options: to take a junior doctor job without residency, like just after my internship, or just to study for my NEET PG. So how should I go about that?
I clearly decided to go about the route of just studying. Of course, I do YouTube and things on the side, but my primary thing is studying, right? And I think it depends on if you want to earn money, basically. If you've done your internship well, that means that you've developed certain skills. You know how to be a doctor. That's the whole point of internship. You applying your theory knowledge. So you've done that during internship. Now, do you want to earn money, like more than your internship stipend? You go for a JR-ship. There's no harm in that. Some people really want to get into residency and they want to get into a good college for residency, and they have that determination. It's easier to do that if you don't have a job. It's obviously a lot easier to spend 10 hours studying, 8 hours studying every day if you don't have a job. If you're not super concerned about, scoring the highest grades, being a topper, and you're okay with like a mid-level college, because there are private hospitals. DNB is a great option for people who don't get into MD/MS. And if you're all right with those other options, apart from being a topper, I think it might be good to do a JR-ship and also study. But then again, like I said, you have to be able to balance both. If you're doing your JR-ship and you still want to do residency, and give the NEET PG, you're going to have to balance that. It'll be tough, but it is possible. And then, a lot of people also don't realize that a lot of people take, they stay JRs for a few years and then they get promoted in that. So they never do their residency. I know somebody who had done a JR-ship in medicine and they stayed in there for like 3 years. They were a JR for 3 or 4 years. And then they got promoted to a non-academic, an SR, a senior resident, based on experience. So that's a path a lot of people, I don't think, recognize exists.
Yeah. So that's another part you can follow, just JR-ship and then SR, and without even going for residency.
Yeah,
but that's a fairly, I would say, longer path.
It's a longer path, and I think ultimately you are paid less. People who have MDs and MS degrees are paid more. DNBs are paid more than just SRs on experience. But again, further down the line, if you have a good practice, you can still earn that money.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, I so these two options are basically personal preference.
Always preference. What do you need? Do
So
you need to earn money? Go earn money. Like, that's your life, that's your journey. If you don't, maybe you should sit and study.
okay, okay. So now I am following your path. I have taken the drop year. I'm not doing my JR ship. I am studying for the NEET PG, and by the grace of God, I cleared it. Okay. Now there is another dilemma. So I cleared NEET
Right.
PG, but I am getting a specialty, a seat in the specialty I don't really want. Not my first choice. So, should I take that or should I work harder, give another exam? So, this is another topic because, work harder also means, okay, I'm ready to work hard, but that also means one more year
Yeah.
I have to wait till I can give because these exams are not elective. This is like happens once a year at a specific date. So you have to wait, even if you just needed one more month to clear that difference. So what should I do here? I wanted medicine, but I am not getting it. I am getting something else. So should I just take that or should I wait?
Maybe somebody who's actually been through it might be better. But I know what I'm going to do. So I'm going to tell you what
Yeah.
I will do in this situation. I know very clearly that I want to do medicine because I want to do medical oncology in the future. So I have to do medicine.
Wow.
And I would rather
Okay.
do medicine at a less prestigious institute rather than doing, say,
Okay.
ENT or maybe some other speciality at a better institute. Because for me, my speciality matters a lot for the type of career I want in the future. Some people don't have that. Some people are kind of okay-ish with what they get or don't get. And
Yeah.
in those cases, I think it's important for you to see how much you hate the speciality you're getting. If you absolutely dislike it, because I know I don't like surgical branches. Like, I just don't get thrill out of standing there and, suturing, cutting. Like, working with my hands is not something that I enjoy. I really like enjoying and sitting and talking to people, figuring out, like, what's their problem, diagnosis. Like, that's what really, gets my heart racing, what I really like to do. So I know that about
Yeah.
myself. I'm never going to take a surgical speciality. So first of all, choosing your options. Second, like, how much do you hate the speciality you're getting? Like, can you see yourself working in this setting? Because all of us have some idea of subjects, right? We've done postings, we've done internships, so we know the day of a doctor in that specialty more or less. And if we don't, we can always ask around. There are plenty of online forums to do that. So once we get
Or
an
we can
idea
watch a
and we-
YouTube video.
exactly, like day in the life of X
A
speciality.
day in my life, yeah.
Watch that video and see if, like, okay, you know what, I can I don't hate children. I'm getting pediatrics, I'm not getting medicine. I don't hate children. It's kind of like the same work, maybe a little bit more challenging because you're dealing with parents and children, but I think I'm happy with the prospects within the speciality. I think you should go for it. I think we taking 1 year off again is fine if you. I think there's a big jump to be made, but like you said, if you can hit that mark in like 1 month of preparation, maybe the other 12 months that you have left, you might end up going down. It's hard to stay consistent at that level
Yeah.
for long periods of times. That's a reality. So maybe it's better to settle if you don't hate it. If you think you can make it work and you don't mind it, I think it's better to go with what you're getting at this time. But of course, if you hate it and like you're sure about that, like, please don't don't take that speciality. Go choose something else. Go either go to some other institute. You probably apply for counselings at several places, right, and see where you're getting your speciality. Go to that institute, no problem, or take a drop year. after that if you know what you want to do and you're not getting it.
So in that drop year, maybe I can go for junior residency and preparation because I've completed most of it, my preparation. That's another option,
Yeah,
right?
probably. Yeah, and if you're doing a JR-ship in the subject that you actually want to do ultimately, that will make at least your first few years a little easier. There is a
Yeah.
big difference in residents who've worked before and who haven't. First year residents that I've experienced who've worked as an MO, for a couple of years before starting their PG, and ones who've just come from internship. The way they speak to the patients is different, how they approach cases, adjust to the workplace is different. There is value to working before doing your residency. But here we don't think about that in India, right? In India, we're kind of like, jaldi, karo, get all of your degrees. And then aaram karo, ash karo in the end, right?
That's also true. You can have different takes, I think.
Yeah.
So, okay. Now I followed all of your suggestions. I am in my specialty. That's good. But see, when you're in a drop year, there's a lot of anxiety about your future. You don't know what you're going to do because it's just those few hours, that one day. You have anxiety. What if I fall sick? All my preparation is going to go to waste. What if something happens? I'm late at the center. A lot of small things trouble you again and again, and that really builds up. So how can one cope up with this anxiety about their own future that just depends on one day and few hours when you're sitting and giving the exam? All your hard work depends on that. So I can imagine a lot of stress. So how did you cope up with it personally, and how can one do that?
I think I always remind myself that I've done this before. We've taken multiple final exams. Our final exams, we have 2 papers, right, for most subjects, and practicals after that. And we have kind of one chance. Maybe you can take the supplementary exam, but basically it's one chance. We've gotten into MBBS means we've taken some entrance exam to get there, right? Either NEET UG or PMT or whatever it was at that time. We've taken some exam. Like, we've been through this situation before. So I can go through it again, first of all. Second of all, understanding that if certain things aren't like, something really bad happens the day of the exam and you absolutely you just can't reach the center, something like those things aren't in your problem. What we can only control, which is our preparation. So I've chosen to focus on that, because worrying about things that I can't control only distracts me from actually being able to achieve what I can. So and it's a conscious thing. You have to keep doing it, keep reminding myself, because naturally my mind wants to wander into worst case scenarios, and that happens. That's the whole premise of anxiety, right? It's irrational. So, but we have a conscious part of our brain, a stronger part of our brain, if we train it to constantly come back. You're like, okay, no, and at this point, it's 12 o'clock in the afternoon, no, I'm going to sit down, and until lunch I'm going to sit and study, forcing yourself to do the work. And then baad mein jo dekha jayega, also have this thing ki nahi hoga, whatever happens, and I'll still be fine. I've been through life. I'm 25 years old. I've been through a lot of stuff in my life. I'll also be fine after this. So having the, a balance between these two things, and constantly working on it. It's not something ki aaj soch liya, tomorrow the anxiety will come back. So you have to keep working on it. It's never as easy as saying ki yaar, matlab chill marna. Aise nahi hota hai. You have to keep forcing ourselves. Nahi, I'm chill. Don't
okay. So you have to, make yourself understand that it's life. What has to happen will happen, but I will control what I can, basically.
Exactly.
So there's one more specific niche down question I have for you. That is, I think you must have gotten thousands of DMs regarding this, and any person would uh, get questions like this. So Suchita, how many hours do you study in a day in your drop year? The the most asked question.
Yeah. So I think until last month, I consistently studied. And when I say studied, I mean like actually studied. I'm not saying that I studied for 50 minutes, took a 10-minute break. That's 50 minutes of studying. That's not 1 hour of studying. So actually studied
Okay.
was probably around 5 to 6 hours. 4 hours some days, 7 hours some days, but usually around 5.5 hours on average every day I was studying. And now since August, at the beginning of August, I've bumped that up to around 8 hours per day. On a good day, maybe I'll get to 10. But you know, like how people are saying, like, oh, you have to study 8 hours per day from the beginning. That wasn't possible for me. I realized like I'd burn out, and 2 days I wouldn't study after that, or 2 days I would study like for a couple of hours and not 5 hours. So it's better to study 15 hours in 3 days than 8 hours and like 1 hour, 2 hours, right? So I decided to stay consistent
Yeah.
with a certain number of hours and just do that every day. Certain days, of course, like 10 o'clock, I'm not sleepy. ठीक है, I'll take another 1 hour and do question banks lying in my bed. But generally, and some days I just don't want to study after dinner. So I don't study if I need that,
Yeah.
you know, those 2 hours to myself to talk to a friend, catch up, talk to my parents. You know, I do that. I allow myself these breaks, but on average, I study now. Since the past 3 weeks, I've been studying around 8 hours per day.
Okay. And do you?
Discluding breaks.
Okay. Yeah.
Discluding
For
breaks,
sure.
just to be clear.
So do you take some buffer days or completely break days where you don't study anything or you just study for half an hour? Do you have days like these? Like purposely,
Yes.
not out of exhaustion.
No, purposely, generally on days that I have grant tests, I take the morning a little easy. So instead of doing my, as I mentioned, like daily challenge, treasures, GT revision. So like my
Yeah.
GT revision's done, right? So that's like a huge portion of my day that's free in the morning. So I just do the daily challenge. I'll do the treasures, and then have a cup of tea, talk to my mom, catch up with her, talk to my sister. She lives abroad, so FaceTiming her. So I take the morning easy, and as I've noticed some people say that it's better to take GTs at like 4 o'clock because the exam NEET PG is at 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
So if we train ourselves to actually be
Okay.
active during that time, so
Okay.
then like after like I on purpose take half the day free until like 12, 1 o'clock, or until whenever I eat lunch. I take it easy on purpose, and then I revise or start getting into the zone, go over questions that I got wrong in the last grant test, and take it at 4 o'clock to 7 o'clock. So on purpose I do it. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I just get exhausted and that's my break. But I try to make it on purpose, because then we feel like we're in control of ourselves.
Yeah. So what about the days you just cannot look at your book out of exhaustion? What do you do? Do you force yourself, or do you just prefer to stay aloof and relax?
I think I haven't had days where I've been that exhausted, luckily. Because I've been consistent with it. I've never gone overboard and forced myself to study. Every day I know my limit. So when I reach that limit at the end of the day, I choose to take a step back. And that's prevented burnout for me. I used to get burnt out a lot, earlier. And knowing that I'm prone to this kind of behavior, I decided to take steps against it, right off the bat. So I don't actually get exhausted from studying anymore. Maybe at the end of the day, but definitely not like in the morning where I'm like, no, I don't want to get out of bed today.
Okay. So one
I
more
already
thing.
achieved like that place. Like this was work I'd done before.
Okay. So one more thing we have is that we all know you have a YouTube channel, you have a Studygram Instagram account.
Yeah.
So how does
Yeah.
that help you in your preparation? Does it motivate you? Do you feel accountable? You have to, create some content related to your studies or something like that. Does it help you in any way?
I think initially I started it with the idea of it being a study gram and a study page on Instagram at least. But I found quickly that it exhausted me. I didn't like doing that because I am kind of introverted. So I felt like I was spending too much energy in a place where I could have been using it during studying, like actually studying. So now I use it just to share my opinions mostly whenever I have like something new, like unboxing videos, and sharing interesting things that I've seen online. When it comes to online content, I think it's more of a hobby. It's for me, it's just a thing to keep my life interesting. Just studying all the time becomes very monotonous, right?
Okay.
One of my favorite pages on Instagram is one where there's this doctor. His name is Martin Pham, MD. I think that's his Instagram ID, and he posts pictures and like stories from his PG days and fellowship days. And he's an American doctor. He's a neurosurgeon. So reading that is something that I really enjoyed. So I like making content that's a little bit story-like. That's a little bit like, that's what I want to do eventually. So I don't feel pressured. I've chosen not to. I used to, but I've chosen now to not feel pressured. I'm accountable to no one but myself. That's something that I've decided, it makes life a little easier for me. I don't need to feel stressed about creating content every week for people to see. So again, I think it goes back to my mentality of take it easy. No one really cares. I was off Instagram for a couple of months in June, July, and I was like, you know what, the world moves fine without me posting stuff and videos. Like, no one really cares. It's okay. So I'll just do it to make myself happy.
Okay, so it's more like a hobby rather than a duty.
Yes, and that's what keeps it fun. If it was a duty, and I did take it as a duty earlier in the year, it became exhausting for me. I didn't want to, put out content which felt forced. So I chose to just put out content that feels genuine to me.
Okay, so that's a great tip or study grammars and YouTubers can learn from, I guess. And for me personally also, I think it's out of hobby that I started my channel and the page, and I hope it doesn't feel like a duty in the future. I'm still a final year student, but I know things are gonna get way tougher from here on. So I hope I don't take it as a duty, and if I do, I'll watch this part of the podcast. And I'll remind myself that I started this for a hobby. But doesn't matter.
And you're doing so well, right? Like you'll do well in the future too. I know that. Final year isn't easy.
Thank you.
And you're still doing all of this, staying active on YouTube and Instagram, way more than I am. So
yeah,
I know that you'll be fine. Don't worry.
Thank you for the good wishes that you have for me. And if I ever feel down, I'm gonna look at this podcast about myself, and I'm gonna feel good after this. So Subhav, this is a reminder for you. So yeah. So also after covering all of this, we've covered the anxiety part, we've covered the different paths, we've also talked about the JR-ship path and everything else. Is there anything else, any other scopes besides NEET PG one can plan on doing after their internship is complete?
Of course, and this is something that I love talking about, because I, for the longest time, wanted to study public health, be in public health. I didn't want to be a clinician after completing MBBS. And I wanted to go ahead and study master's in public health, probably outside of India, and work for the WHO or some organization like that. That was what I wanted to do for the longest time, until I entered third year and final year, where I was like, wait, no, I actually like clinical work, so maybe I should stay into this. But there are so many options for doctors, starting from something as common as civil services. I think I know a lot of doctors who've come into the civil services, and before anyone says that, no, a doctor, if you're trained as an MBBS, you have to do clinical work, you have to be a doctor. A lot of people have this idea, right? We're very against the idea of doctors going into other fields after getting their education. Ye seat kisi aur ko mil jati, wo doctor ban jata. This is something we hear a lot. But the truth of the matter is that an intelligent person, educated person, more likely than not, is going to be an asset to society wherever they are. That education will help you do something or the other, no matter which field you're in. So going into public health, going into bureaucracy, these are things that, maybe you can help create a better system of healthcare using the education that you've gotten. Other than that, a lot of people go into hospital management if you still want to stay within the medical field but not actually work in it. People do MBAs after doing MBBS. I know a couple of people. My cousin was doing MBA, and they had a couple of doctors in their class. Apart from that, if you really didn't like MBBS, if you really hated it, and you just did it because ab to aa gaye, karna hi hai, maybe it's good to take some time and decide what you want to do and go in that direction. The options are quite open. Like, a lot of people go into research, right? Maybe not in India per se, but abroad, definitely a lot of people can go ahead and get into research institutes, get into public health institutes, into management, and that's off the top of my head. Like, these are the ones that are pretty easy, where you're in the medical field but you're not a doctor, you're not a clinician.
Okay, so we've covered everything, I think, and I don't
what
think
about
so
you? So I actually I'm curious though, do you want to be a clinician? Like, do you want to stay and work as a doctor, or do you want to like do something else in the future? Like, you have a platform, right? You have a YouTube channel. Maybe you could branch out and do other stuff after you're done.
No, see, I have a YouTube channel, but I definitely am not considering it as a profession. It's more like a hobby to me. And as I said, I'm mad about medicine, and my thoughts actually align with you. Actually, like, I'm not interested in a surgical field per se, but that has a cause, because in my university I felt medicine was taught so well, and because of that, surgery lagged behind. Like, I think because of my university, I like medicine more, because I found the teachers better, they explained me better. I'm not saying the surgery teachers were bad, but just medicine was more appealing to me. So whenever I open my surgery book or study related to surgery, I'm like, oh, I would rather study medicine. Why am I here? So but that's the present scenario. Obviously, in my final year, I'm going to study surgery more. I'm going to explore it more. Things might change, but present scenario, I'm mad about medicine, and I plan to continue that and hopefully go in the medicine field, and then study that, see my options, and see where I can go. Cardiology, gastroenterology. That's for fellowship, not now, but for residency, present scenario, as a final medical student, I can say pretty much medicine will be my focus, and definitely not being an entrepreneur and branching out as a YouTuber. That's just an hobby, and I plan to make it that way, let it stay that
Okay.
way. So yeah, that was about my future plans. But what about yours? Like, what are you going to do? What is your current situation now, and what do you plan on future?
I plan on doing an MD in medicine. That's kind of set. Like I have to do that. After that, I want to do an fellowship in oncology. Hopefully from India, but if I get the opportunity to do it abroad, I'm looking forward to, especially those short-term training programs. In a lot of foreign colleges and hospitals offer that, and if you know anything about like, and you know this, right, like how I like K-pop and BTS and things like that, so like I like Korean culture. I had
Yeah.
actually one of my friends in primary school, one of my best friends was Korean, and that's how I got into Korean culture and food, because we'd share tiffins and things like that. So I hopefully get an opportunity to go there, do like a couple of weeks or a month, course, post my fellowship or maybe after residency. So I don't want to, stay limited to being trained in India. I want to be trained in different parts of the world, gain knowledge from a lot of places. I really want to be an oncologist, work with cancer patients. I think the disease itself is, so broad. No matter what system we're studying, there is a cancer of that subject, of that system. So I think it's very because there's so many options within that field, and apart from it being a very it has a lot of social costs. There's a lot of psychology of patients and doctors who are treating cancer patients. There's a lot of those kind of things that intrigue me a lot. I'm very into social studies and psychology. Like these are topics that I like. So I think that's why I want to do oncology in the future. So that's kind of, further down the line plans that I have right now. It's like get into residency, survive residency, and tab dekha jayega what to do. Continue like making YouTube videos and posting stuff on Instagram, and that's basically what I'm planning. Maybe like get married down the line, like that's kind of it.
So about your YouTube videos, I recently saw you uploaded an unboxing of a Korean album, I think, and so that's another aspect to your YouTube channel that I think many people would like, especially my girlfriend, who was a big fan of BTS. Like, I don't know why, but she is. So
No, I
she
know
was
why,
excited. I
and
told
she's
her, yeah, I told her about your channel, and she was like, "Oh, I'll watch that unboxing." Yay!
yeah. I again, like I think one of the biggest things about me wanting to be on YouTube was that I couldn't find anybody doing the kind of things that I wanted to see, which were like like a doctor being a normal, multifaceted human being. A lot of the doctors on the internet were basically like, oh, doctor, health awareness, things like that, which are very important. But like I said, I like stories. I like storytelling. I like, things being complex. And because we're all complex human beings, I wanted to be able to put out several different aspects of myself. And that's why I did the unboxing and posted it, because I was like, you know what? This is something that makes me happy, and I'm going to do it. This is me.
So, guys, if you haven't checked out Suchita's channel, and especially that Korean album unboxing, definitely go there. And if you're a big fan of BTS or any other Korean band or K-pop or K-drama, I think you will find some value added to your life by watching that unboxing, because I personally love unboxing videos. So yeah, definitely check her channel out. And I think that's been it.
Oh,
And
thank you.
and it was a great talk we had, and I think and hopefully many students can take some value out of it. And I personally learned a lot being a final year medical student on how to approach my life after my MBBS and internship. So thank you for that. And
You're welcome.
yeah, that's been it. It was great having you.
Thank you so much for inviting me, and I'm really honored because I remember, when we first started talking on Instagram a few months ago, it was like, oh, this guy is really cool. Like, his Instagram page is like so well put together, and YouTube channel is so well put together. Like, I remember like your first video, and I was like, yes, branching out. Like, I was so happy to see, those small small things that you did in the beginning, and to actually be a guest on your podcast, it means a lot. And I'm really glad that we're Indian medical students, doctors out there doing things outside of just studying.
That's great. So I think we'll wrap this up, and
Yep.
it was great having you, and I'll see you some other time.
All right, then. Hopefully, after quarantine and stuff is done, maybe when you come back to India, we can meet each other. But until then, thank you so much. Bye.
Yeah, I needed that bye from you. So that was it for today. If you gained anything from this podcast, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And if you absolutely loved it, just smash that subscribe button. Just smash it. Okay? And as always, stay healthy, stay safe, and stay mad, but just about medicine.